Today's lesson is everyday logic. Crash course muna tayo sa logic. Sa logic, we consider arguments. Ang arguments ay hindi yan pagtatalo, kundi ganito ang kanyang structure. So, meron kang mga assumptions, tapos meron kang conclusion. So, in this example, ang ating assumptions, merong dalawa. Ang tawag sa, iba pang tawag sa assumption ay premise. The first premise is, all humans are mortal. The second premise is, Socrates is a human. So what can we conclude? Ano yung what naturally follows from these premises? At ang sagot ay ito. Therefore, Socrates is mortal. So kung gusto mo maging technical, ang itsura niya sa using a Venn diagram ay ganito. Lahat daw ng humans, ito yung set of all humans, lahat daw tayo ay mortal. At marami pang pwedeng ibang mortals. Siguro nandyan yung animals, siguro nandyan yung plants. Socrates is human, so Socrates belongs to this group. So therefore, Socrates belongs to the mortal group. So this is an example of a good argument. Kasi yung premises, it will naturally lead to the conclusion. It correctly leads to the conclusion. Unfortunately, hindi lahat ng arguments ay well-constructed. So ito ang example ng bad argument. So, Socrates is human, Socrates is mortal. So yan yung ating assumptions. Ang conclusion ay all humans are mortal. So isipin, bakit ito bad argument? Okay, and the answer ay dahil isa lang ang iyong kinonsider na example. Humanap ka ng isang example that is both human and mortal at the same time. Tapos kinunclude mo na agad na lahat ng humans also so meron kang nakuha na isang human na mortal. Kinunclude mo na agad na lahat ng humans ay mortal. That's a bad argument. That's a case of hasty generalization. So, masyado kang nag-generalize agad. Generalization. Isang example lang, sinabi mo na agad na totoo siya sa lahat. So, this is an example of a bad argument. Okay, so ito ang mga aaralin natin ngayong araw tungkol sa arguments. So, the first skill is identifying or drawing conclusions. So, based on the name itself, kung nakalagay na yung conclusion, dapat ma-identify mo siya. Kung hindi pa, dapat ma-infer mo yung conclusion. So, let's consider this example. And by the way, pag nagbasa tayo, i-analyze na rin natin. No? So, wag lang magbabasa passively. Dapat iniintindi mo na siya habang binabasa. Those in favor of coursework contributing to grades in major subjects say that this is much fairer than assessment by exam only, as it means that students who are willing to work hard but who perform poorly in exams will have a better chance of doing well. Okay, so that's a mouthful. First sentence pa lang, ang dami agad. Ano lang yung sinasabi niya muna? Meron kasing mga proponent na pag major subject, dapat daw assessment by exam lang. So, ang grade mo ay nakadepende lang sa exam. Pero, sabi dito, meron ding mga in favor. So, merong mga in favor dito na exams lang ang basehan. Pero merong mga in favor na idagdag yung coursework. Coursework meaning siguro project or pwedeng seatwork, homework, quiz, and so on. Hindi lang puro exams. At ang dahilan, bakit may mga sumusuporta dito, ito yung binigay na dahilan. Kasi daw, para kahit na mababa ka sa exam, kung willing to work hard ka naman, willing ka gumawa ng project halimbawa, you will still get a good grade of still doing well. Okay, so yun na yung ating analysis. However, this arrangement currently allows far more opportunity for cheating, casting doubt on its fairness. Okay, so yung first sentence binanggit na merong mga in favor. Pero dito, hindi pala siya ganun kaganda after all. No? Kasi yung number one, parang in support siya na maganda ang coursework. Dahil nga sa dahilan na ito, na kung willing ka mag-work hard, kahit mababa ka sa exam, okay pa rin ang iyong magiging grade. Pero hindi pala siya ganun kaganda. Bakit? Dahil sa cheating. At dahil may cheating, hindi na ganun ka fair yung magiging grading. For example, there's a growing market for customized essays available for a fee via the internet. So, ito yung example ng cheating. Pwede kang bumili ng essay. At the moment, The only deterrent is a teacher's vigilance. But while teachers might identify work which seems atypical for individual students, they won't necessarily detect when, for example, a student has had an unacceptable amount of help from family or friends. Okay, so yan again, ito lang yung, ang sinasabi lang dito sa last two sentences ay, yung mga ganitong cheating, pwede naman siyang mahuli ng teachers, pero marami pa ring butas, no? So pwedeng hindi mahuli ng teacher kasi pwedeng hindi naman siya ah pwede siyang mahuli kasi kung halatang hindi student yung gumawa, pero pwedeng hindi ganun kahalata. So hindi pa so ano pa rin na-enable pa rin yung cheating. Sige, question. What conclusion can we draw from this passage? Sige, pause the video at pag-isipan. So, based on the wording of the question, mukhang wala pa dito yung conclusion, so tayo ang mag-iisip. Ano ang natural conclusion na sana ay iyong maisip? At ang sagot ay, initially, ang sinabi dito ay mukhang okay yung coursework. Bukod lang sa exam. Pero eventually, yung sa mga sumunod na sentence, parang ginastify niya na hindi pala ganun kaganda ang coursework. So, that's our conclusion. That assessment by coursework is not necessarily fairer than assessment by exam. Or something to this effect. Hindi kailangan itong exact ang iyong maisip. Basta ang idea ay, hindi pala ganun ka-fair. Kasi sa simula, mukha siyang fair, pero hindi rin pala kasi may room for cheating. Okay, so sana medyo madali pa yon. Okay. The second skill that you need to, kung may questions, again, comment down below. Second ay, you should identify assumptions. So dito, again, going back to our example kanina, ay mula sa premises, nag-deduce tayo ng conclusion. This time, meron tayong conclusion, ang hinahanap sa atin ay isa sa mga premises na hindi in-state, kaya siya tinawag na implicit. Merong assumption or merong premise na hindi explicitly stated. So, mag-iisipin natin kung ano yung implicit assumptions na yon. Example, the executive of the Students' Union has recently carried out a survey to identify dangerous areas on campus. Sige, highlight the keywords. Dito, meron tayong student union. They carried out a survey, and ang survey ay they want to identify the dangerous areas on campus. The survey led to the recommendation and implementation of measures. So, nagkaroon ng mga recommendation at bagong batas such as improved lighting in suspect areas. Such reforms can only help to reduce the number of attacks on campus. Okay, so okay pa so far. So merong survey na naganap, tapos merong mga recommendation at bagong batas na nangyari dahil dun sa survey na yun. However, the University Lake and its surrounding area was not included in the survey. So University Lake, it was not included. Because, despite being thought of as part of the campus, it actually belongs to the city council. So, ibig sabihin, kahit na siguro, ito yung common knowledge na part siya ng campus, actually hindi pala siya part ng campus. It belongs to the city council. This means that the university has no direct influence over the safety standards. At dahil hindi university ang may-ari, wala silang control. Hindi nila ma-implement yung batas na ito. So therefore, it should be avoided by lone students at night. Okay, question. What is an assumption in this argument na hindi binanggit? Okay, so mahirap tong hulaan, so meron tayong choices. Letter A. So again, as with most assessments, pag may choices, you have to choose the best answer. So pwedeng more than one answer ang acceptable, you have to choose the best. Students do not look after their own safety but rely on others to take safety measures on their behalf. Hindi naman yan kasi sobrang extreme naman yan. For sure, students, actually, hindi naman for sure, pero, ano naman, wala naman, hindi to kailangan i-assume. Ang conclusion kasi dito ay, ano ba ang mga conclusion dito? So, ano yung mga nangyari? So, merong survey, nagkaroon ng batas, tapos yung University Lake, dapat iwasan. So, hindi naman kailangan ito para dun sa argument na yon. Letter B. The city council regard the lake as owned by the campus. Actually, hindi. Baligtad. Kakasabi lang dito, sa University Lake, the lake area, it belongs to the city council. So, hindi. Letter C. Students walking on and off campus at night would go via the university lake. Sige. So far, hindi pa natin to basta may X. Kasi ang sabi dito, dahil walang control tayo sa lake, dapat siyang iwasan. So, ibig sabihin, posible na ah, yung mga students ay doon sila po dumadaan. Pero, may chance din na hindi kasi sobrang extreme ng claim na ito eh. Tignan mo eh. On and off campus daw. Walking on and off campus para bang lahat ng naglalakad mula sa campus palabas and vice versa at night dito sila dumadaan. Sobrang extreme nung claim. So mukha siyang X pero hindi pa natin muna i-Xan kasi it's a possible answer pa. Okay, tuloy tayo. The safety measures taken by the city council are either non-existent or are inferior to those implemented by the student union. Okay. So, mukhang ma-exam na natin si C. So far, ang best answer natin ay D. Kasi, kung maganda na yung batas ng City Council, hindi na kailangan ng Student Union mag-implement. So far, mukhang tamang sagot si D. Kaya kailangan ng Student Union na mag-implement ng survey at ng bagong batas. Dahil baka either walang rule, at yan, pwedeng walang rule, non-existent, measures are non-existent, or hindi ganun kaganda yung pag-implement. And letter E. So again, always check all the answers kasi pwedeng may mas maganda pa sa letter D. At yun ay, the executive of the student union is merely seeking popularity in implementing its reforms and is not genuinely concerned about the safety of the students. So again, sobrang extreme ng claim na ito na parang ginudge mo na agad yung student union na gusto lang nilang magpasikat. So the best answer is letter D. Okay. So, I should mention, ito ay sana i-apply nyo to in your everyday lives, the principle of charity. And it tells us the following. When interpreting a statement o kaya an argument, dapat lagi mo siyang i-interpret in the best possible light. Ibig sabihin, i-analyze mo siya in the best way possible. So, ano ang mga wag mong gagawin? So, ang perfect example ng huwag gagawin ay itong letter E. Kasi itong letter E ay sobrang inassume mo na agad na masama yung student union. No? Parang, you did not interpret it in the best possible way. Inassume mo agad na may masama silang agenda na gusto lang nila maging popular. So, sana ay iwasan natin yan sa ating everyday life. So, itong lesson natin ngayon ay very practical. Ito ay ma-apply nyo sa inyong buhay. Sana i-apply natin ito. In fact, ang challenge ko sa inyo ay kapag may nakita kayong mga argument kunyari sa social media like sa Facebook or sa Twitter at matapang kayo enough to comment, pwede nyo yung banggitin tong principle of charity. In fact, I believe na maraming pagtatalo ang nangyayari sa Facebook or sa social media in general, lalo na sa politics for example, because we do not practice the principle of charity. So parang ina-assume agad natin yung worst sa ating quote-and-quote na kaaway. No? So, kapag magkaiba kayo ng opinion, i-assume mo na agad yung worst. So, sana wag tayong ganun. Okay, you should practice the principle of charity. Okay, so sana ito ay inyong take-away sa ating subject. So, kung meron kayong isang lesson lang sa subject na ito na matututunan, sana ito yon. Okay. The third skill is assessing the impact of additional evidence. So, example, based on the name itself, ibig sabihin, ano ang effect pag meron ka pang bagong knowledge na nakuha? So, sa example na ito, polar bears in captivity frequently engage in obsessive patterns of behavior. So, underline the keywords, polar bears, obsessive behaviors. Anong example ng obsessive behaviors? They pace back and forth on the same spot, they swing their heads from side to side, and other signs of stress. Okay. They do this even when their living areas are quite spacious. So, kahit malaki yung kanilang tirahan, ganito pa rin. So, what this shows, so, ibig sabihin, ito na yung conclusion. What this shows is that the condition of captivity are not a satisfactory are not a satisfactory substitute for the natural environment of the polar bear. Okay, so sabi dito, dahil sa captivity, pag nakakulong sila sa zoo halimbawa, we observe obsessive patterns of behaviors. At kahit malaki yung area, ganito pa rin ang kanilang behavior. So ang conclusion ng argument na ito ay yung pag kinulong mo sila, when they live in captivity, hindi yan good substitute kumpara sa totoong habitat nila. Mas magandang nandun lang sila sa natural habitat imbes na ikulong mo sila. Okay, question. What statement, if true, would weaken the above argument? May maiisip ka bang statement na kung alam mo yung statement na yon, so that's an additional evidence, it would weaken this argument? Ibig sabihin, the conclusion, ito yung conclusion eh. The conclusion is this. Conditions of captivity are not a satisfactory substitute. So, sige, pause the video at pag-isipan. Okay, so sana ay yung maisip, ano ang example ng, kung totoo man yung sentence na yon, this conclusion will be, somehow it will be false more than true. At ang sagot ay, if this obsessive patterns of behavior is always observed meaning kahit nasa natural environment sila, ganyan pa rin yung kanilang behavior, ibig sabihin, hindi yun dahil sa nakakulong sila. Ibig sabihin, talagang ganun lang yung kanilang nature. Tama, di ba? Kasi kung ang claim dito ay, kaya sila mukhang stressed, ay dahil nakakulong sila. Pero kung kahit sa nature, ganyan ang kanilang behavior, eh di hindi yun dahil nakakulong sila, kundi ganun lang talaga sila. So that's the answer. If we can see polar bears in the wild engaging in obsessive behaviors, then this conclusion is not really correct. Kasi marami pang pwedeng dahilan. Example ay baka ganun lang talaga yung kanilang nature. Or maybe may ibig sabihin, maybe it's not about stress. Maybe may kung ano man silang ginagawa. So, yeah, that will weaken this conclusion. That's the impact of this additional evidence. Okay, so fourth skill is detecting reasoning errors. So, balikan natin si principle of charity. Even if you apply the principle of charity, so sure ka nang naging generous ka sa iyong interpretation ng statement or ng argument ng isang tao, pwedeng may mali pa rin dun sa kanyang reasoning. So, always apply the principle of charity, pero posible pa rin may mali. So, in that case, dapat ma-detect mo kung ano yung mali. Example, some people attempt to smuggle a pet to country X because of the quarantine regulations, which are aimed at preventing rabies from entering the country. So, meron tayong people attempting to smuggle pets. At dahil nag-smuggle meaning it's illegal, they smuggle because there is a quarantine. There is a regulation. At ang regulation na yon, ang goal nun ay to prevent rabies from entering the country. If there were no such regulations, there would be no reason to smuggle. Tama. Kasi kung ang term na smuggle lang naman, nagiging smuggling ang iyong activity dahil may batas kang nilalabag. So, kung walang ganong batas, walang smuggling. Nagpapasok ka lang, hindi smuggling ang iyong ginagawa. Since the most likely source of rabies is smuggled pets, so ito yan, ang main cause ng rabies outbreak sa country ay smuggled pets. If the quarantine regulations were abolished, kung wala ng quarantine, the danger of rabies outbreak would be reduced. Okay, so yan ang ating conclusion. So this is our conclusion. Pag nawala ang quarantine regulations, the rabies would be reduced. Sige. What is a mistake in this argument? So pause the video at pag-isipan. Okay, so ano ang mali dito? I think hindi naman siya ganun kahirap isipin kasi may mga smuggling, so kaya dahil may quarantine, mayroong smuggling na nagaganap. Ang goal ng quarantine ay to prevent rabies. So sabi dito, kapag in-stop yung quarantine, mawawala ng rabies kasi wala ng smuggling. That's incorrect kasi baka nga ang mangyari ay pag wala na yung quarantine, wala nang smuggling, totoo yun, pero posibleng dumami na yung papasok na pets. And in which case, posibleng lalo pang tumaas yung cases of rabies. So that's our answer. If there were no quarantine regulations, pets with rabies could enter the country more easily and thus worsening the rabies outbreak. So, yeah. Kahit i-assume mo ang principle of charity dito, this argument is really flawed. At ito yung kanyang mali doon. And the last skill na inyong matututunan for today is applying principles. Ang sinasabi dito ay, if you believe something, kung naniniwala ka sa isang argument, saang ibang argument or saang ibang statements ka pa dapat maniwala dahil yung principle na ginamit sa argument na pinapaniwalaan mo ay yun din yung principle dun sa statement na pangalawa. So, saan ka pa, kung naniniwala ka dito, saan ka pa naniniwala? Dahil yung principle behind this ay yun din yung ginagamit sa statements na yun. So, example, smokers who suffer from heart disease, which is caused by their smoking, should not be allowed to get free health treatment. So, smokers, which is caused by their smoking, should not be not allowed to get free health treatment. This is because this is an example of self-inflicted illness. So, example daw yan ng self-inflicted illness. Those whose actions have caused the illness or injury to themselves should make a financial contribution to their treatment. So, kapag ikaw yung dahilan, so if it's a self-inflicted illness, ikaw yung dahilan ng iyong sakit, hindi dapat free ang iyong treatment. Dapat mag-contribute ka sa iyong treatment. Okay, question. Which of the following best illustrates the principle underlying the argument above? Ibig sabihin, kung naniniwala ka dito, saan ka pa dapat maniwala? Kasi yung principle principle ay pareho lang. Okay, letter A. Children should get free dental treatment even if they eat sweets which cause dental decay. So this is incorrect. Kabaligtaran, in fact, kasi dahil yung children yung dahilan ng kanilang tooth decay, they should not get free dental treatment dahil sila yung may kasalanan. The disease is self-inflicted. So, hindi A. Letter B. Heart disease sufferers who can afford to pay for health treatment should not receive free treatment. This is more about being able to afford the treatment. Hindi naman yun yung usapan. Ang usapan ay, is the disease self-inflicted or not? Wala siyang kinalaman sa afford mo ba or hindi. So, letter B is not a satisfactory answer. Letter C, smokers who cannot afford to pay for healthcare should be allowed free treatment when they are ill. In some sense, para siyang kabaligtaran ng B. Si letter B, yung nakaka-afford daw, dapat hindi bigyan ng free treatment. Si letter C, yung hindi nakaka-afford, dapat bigyan ng free treatment. Again, this is incorrect. Kasi wala naman siyang kinalaman sa afford or hindi. Letter D, people who are injured in car accidents should receive free treatment regardless of whether they were wearing a seatbelt. Okay. So, letter D is, pwedeng katanggap-tanggap siya, pero hindi siya ganun kalinaw kasi sabi dito, regardless of whether they are wearing. Ibig sabihin, whether you are wearing or not, you should receive treatment. So, parang hindi rin siya sagot. So, by elimination, it's letter E. Pero i-check pa rin natin. Motorcyclists whose head injuries are caused by not wearing a crash helmet should make a financial contribution to their treatment. So, this is a satisfactory answer kasi you got a head injury kasi alam mo na ngang pwedeng kang magka-head injury, hindi ka pa rin nag-wear ng helmet. So, dapat, you should not get a free treatment. You should make a financial contribution. So, that's the best answer. Okay, so, that's the lesson for the day. Here are some parting words. Number 1, choose the best answer. Ibig sabihin, may dalawa itong possible interpretations. So, pwedeng lahat ng sagot ay correct or pwedeng lahat ay satisfactory. So, in which case, you have to choose the best answer. Similarly, pwedeng lahat ng sagot ay hindi satisfactory, meaning parang lahat ay ganun lang, hindi so-so lang, walang stand out. Pero among the not so good answers, you still have to choose the best. Okay, so siguro ang example dito ay letter E. Kunwari, paano ba? Kunyari wala si letter E. So, hindi kasama sa option si letter E. Tapos, gawin natin si letter A na children should get, gawin natin si letter D. So, ganyan. Letter D i-modify natin. You should receive free treatment. People who are injured in car accidents should receive free treatment if they were wearing a seatbelt. Okay. So, o- tapos si letter A gawin nating children should not get free dental treatment even if they should not get free treatment if they eat sweets which cause dental decay. Okay. So, kunyari ganyan. What is now the best answer? Okay. Letter A will be the best answer. Letter D is a satisfactory answer kasi somehow, ang sinasabi kasi dito, kapag self-inflicted, hindi ka dapat, pag self-inflicted, hindi ka dapat libre. Dito, medyo kabaligtaran siya. Kasi ang sabi dito, the car accident is not self-inflicted. First of all, accident siya. Second, you did your best to prevent the accidents. Nag-wear ka naman ng seatbelt. Tapos you should get free treatment daw. So, medyo tama siya ng konti, pero kabaligtaran siya nung dito. Kasi dito, self-inflicted, you should get not free daw. So, in some sense, parang itong letter D, parang kabaligtaran. Not self-inflicted, so dapat ikaw ay free. So, medyo tama pero not completely. Kasi yung kabaligtaran na siya eh. So, letter D is okay, but the best answer is still letter A. Kasi yan yung self-inflicted. Dahil kumain ka ng sweets, that cause tooth decay, so dapat hindi ka free. Okay, so ganun ha. Always choose the best answer. Second, answer what is being asked. So, again, may dalawa itong, kumbaga, sub-items. First ay, even if a statement is true, kunwari sa choices, merong true statement doon, kahit true statement siya, kung hindi naman niya sinasagot yung tanong, wag mo siyang pipiliin. Okay? So, kahit true statement siya, kung hindi niya sinasagot yung tanong, wag mo siyang pipiliin. Ang second ay, directly answer the question. Example, katulad dito, ang tanong dito, sa item na ito ay, which of the following best illustrates the principle, the underlying principle? Hindi niya tinanong kung ano yung conclusion. So, kung nasa choices, kunwari, ang conclusion kasi dito ay ito. Uh, Essentially, ito yung conclusion. Kapag self-inflicted, dapat hindi ka free. Kung nasa choices yan, wag mo yung pipiliin kasi ang tanong dito ay what illustrates the principle. So, answer the question. And number 3, answer logically and unemotionally. So, meaning, kahit na hindi ka agree dun sa argument, or sa premises, or sa conclusion, kung yun ang tamang sagot, piliin mo siya. Okay, so, hindi tayo dapat emotional sa pagsagot sa quiz. Dapat tayo ay logical. Okay, in closing, let us consider these quotations, words of wisdom, para na sana i-apply natin sa ating buhay. A fact is information minus emotion. An opinion is information plus experience. Ignorance is an opinion lacking information. And stupidity is an opinion that ignores facts. Okay. So, anong sinasabi lang nito in essence? Sa social media, maraming woke at maraming pa-woke. So, walang problema na tayo ay woke. So, okay ito. So, okay. Oops. Ano ang hindi okay? Hindi okay maging pa-woke kasi yan ay mga mema lang itong mga ito eh, mga nagmamagaling. So, ano ang mga traits ng isang taong woke? So, kung ikaw ay woke, dapat your beliefs should be based on facts. Ang iyong opinion ay based on facts. Ito yan. Second, you should avoid being ignorant. Dapat ang iyong opinion ay based on facts, hindi lang siya puro opinion, hindi lang siya puro emotions. And lastly, you should avoid being stupid. Ibig sabihin, kung meron kang pinaniniwalaan, and then you encounter a fact, talagang a known fact contradicting your belief, dapat you should be willing to refine your belief. No, hindi lang siya, you cannot base your beliefs on emotion. So, yan. Sana ay tayo, maging woke tayo, wag tayo maging pa-woke. And lastly, do not explain your philosophy, embody it. So, action speaks louder than words. Ngayong alam nyo na itong lahat, itong, ayan, mga basic skills sa logic in everyday life, sana ay wag yan huminto sa theory. Dapat alam nyo itong i-apply sa inyong buhay. So, i-apply yan, yung 5. So, halimbawa, siguro ang pinakamaganda rito ay ito. Dapat kaya nating i-detect kung meron kung merong error ang ibang tao, and more importantly, kung merong error ka ikaw mismo sa iyong reasoning. So, dapat sensitive ka sa mga errors that you commit, sa iyong biases, sa iyong mga paniniwala na hindi naman based on facts. Ito pa, practice the principle of charity. So, sana ay tayo ay, when we interpret someone else's arguments, we should interpret it in the best possible light. And lastly, ito, so sana ay isabuhay natin ang words of wisdom na ito. So, thank you.